and it was my pleading each night at the dinner table, as my 3 younger brothers sat quietly, that convinced my parents to dig up the backyard and put in a bomb shelter. It cost $3,000, exactly the price of the H-bomb hideaway featured in Life in 1955. The thing was finished just in time for the Cuban Missile Crisis. A short-legged man who loved hiking created the first man-made nuclear chain reaction on December 2nd, 1942, in a disused squash court at the University of Chicago. His name was Enrico Fermi. In Fermi's chain reaction, a subatomic particle called a neutron hits the nucleus of a uranium atom, cleaving it in two and releasing energy in the process. A uranium nucleus has quite a few neutrons of its own, and after the split, a few of these go flying off individually along with the 2 main fission fragments. Each of the spawned neutrons eventually strikes a fresh uranium nucleus, splitting it in half, releasing more energy and more neutrons, and the activity rapidly multiplies, going faster and faster. The uranium nuclei are like a lot of cocked mousetraps on the floor, each loaded with several ping-pong balls waiting to jump into the air when the spring is triggered. Toss a single ball into the middle to get the thing started, and soon ping-pong balls will be zinging everywhere. Fermi kept his chain reaction from getting out of hand by constantly removing some of the neutrons, just as the frantic release of the mousetraps can be slowed by catching some of the balls in midair before they land on cocked traps. Fermi was almost unique in 20th century physics for being superb in both theory and experiment. He had, with others, conceived of nuclear chain reactions in early 1939. The whole idea of fission was only a few months old at the time. Before 1938, everyone believed that atomic nuclei remained more or less whole, with the nuclei of some elements gradually disintegrating, a few small bits at a time. The emission of these bits is called radioactivity. Antoine-Henri Becquerel, a French physicist, first discovered radioactivity from uranium in 1896, and soon after, the husband and wife team of Pierre and Marie Curie observed it from another element, radium, which lost weight little by little as it hurled out tiny particles. In the early 1900s, scientists didn't know where in the atom radioactivity originated. Atoms were pictured as solid spheres of evenly distributed positive electrical charges embedded with negatively charged particles called electrons. The electron, discovered in 1897, was clearly a subatomic particle. Its existence already contradicted the old Greek notion that the atom was indivisible. But the details of an atom's innards were largely unknown. Then, in a brilliantly straightforward experiment in 1911, Ernest Rutherford discovered the atomic nucleus. Rutherford fired subatomic particles at a sheet of gold. The projectiles he used were alpha particles, found by the Curies in their studies of radioactivity and known to be about 1/50th the weight of gold atoms. If the positive charge in an atom were thinly scattered throughout its volume, as believed, then the alpha particles should have met little resistance in passing through the target gold atoms. But some bounced straight back, apparently having struck something highly concentrated. What Rutherford had discovered was that the atom is mostly empty space, with a very tiny center of positive charge about which the electrons orbit at great distance. The dense center, the nucleus of the atom, contains all of the atom's positive charge and more than 99.9% of its weight. It is roughly 100,000 times smaller than the atom as a whole. The booming-voiced Lord Rutherford strongly preferred simple, rough-and-ready experiments, and this was surely one. He also had an excellent nose for making predictions. His experiments had shown that the atom's positively charged particles, called protons, reside in the central nucleus. Rutherford went on to predict, correctly, that protons share their nuclear living quarters with other uncharged particles, later called neutrons. One of Rutherford's collaborators from 1901 to 1903 was a man named Frederick Soddy, who later won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. They worked together on radioactivity. Sadi was impressed by the energy emerging from the depths of the atom.